Somebody did something to your daughter. Would the old life kick right back in?
Without it.
His name is Michael Franzese.
What do you like when you snap?
I'm quick.
Is the youngest mafia boss, have made perhaps as much as $1 billion.
Do you have any information that the mob was involved with the assassination of JFK?
100%. We hated the Kennedys. Marilyn's in bed with Robert F. Kennedy. She called out my father's name.
Are you in the Mafia?
Am I in the what?
And we watched Goodfellas.
Michael Franzese.
I still haven't admitted to any of my daughters.
If you were to kill someone, how would you do it?
There's ways to do things. Think it out, and you handle it.
The FBI says you're a member of the Colombo Mafia family.
Like I said, the FBI can allege and say whatever they like. They've been doing it for many, many years.
So you basically left that life and then you waited it out.
I'm going to reveal something right now. I'm coming out of prison. They want me to cooperate. I'm not going to cooperate.
Were you ever present when somebody was planning to get whacked?
Listen, as part of that life, people die. Well, I want to say this, and I really mean this. This is one of the most satisfying conversations that I've ever had.
Wow.
I don't know why. You know, just
Appreciate
feel
you.
very comfortable and loose, and you're good at what you do. You're great at what you do.
Thank
I'll
you.
say that.
Michael Franzese.
My pleasure.
What an honor.
Thank you.
What an honor this is. You know, I watched a podcast that you did recently with Bill
Maher.
And he was quite aggressive.
Yeah.
He was quite aggressive with you at first. And I watched it and I thought, what a dick. Like, you're his guest. He's invited you. And just to see your temperament, your emotional intelligence, to almost, you know, because listen, when you're in your previous life, if somebody spoke to you like that, it would have been game over.
Well, you know, depending upon who it was. And that life was very good training for meeting somebody like Bill Maher. Because when you're sitting down with another guy that was on my level, you know, a made guy, and they got all sorts of boisterous, and you kept your cool, you win the argument. Every time. You know, because there's nothing they can do to you. They can act silly and talk brave, but there's nothing they can do. So you had to outsmart them. And I was ready for Bill Maher. I knew his personality, his temperament. I knew exactly what he was going to do. So it was fun.
Watching that, he was trying to Piers Morgan you in a little bit of just like, oh, I caught you on something, caught you on a lie. Oh, it wasn't a lie, but it's like, oh, I heard you say that. Like, he was just going tit for tat.
Yeah.
And every time you were going above it. Every time you were going above it and showing that it doesn't affect you. I guess that you have to credit that to the life that you had before.
Yeah, because, you know, in that life, you know, one of the issues I had to deal with, I was one of the younger guys. And I was successful. And the older guys resent that. You know, it's like the real world. They resent it. Except in that life, the resentment can have a little bit more serious consequences if you can't handle it properly. So you get some of the old timers, you're sitting down at a sit down, which is a formal meeting where we resolve disputes and business disputes and sometimes people's lives. So you're sitting there, and what they try to do is they try to trap you into saying something that will cause you to lose the argument. For instance, you're being abusive to me in a way verbally. If I come, but you're not crossing the line, but you're trying to get me. And if I jump up and say you're a liar, I lose the argument because I can't be disrespectful to that person. I can go to such a point. So they try to get you to that point. So you have to maintain your composure. And that's how you win. So I learned that on the street because I had many, many of those sit downs because I was active in business. So Bill Maher was a piece of cake.
The only time online that I've seen you get angry, I wouldn't even say angry, but increase your tone. One time. You know which one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Sammy the Bull Gravano.
Yes.
Was that staged then? Because the control that I saw, I felt like you could have controlled it anyways.
Well, there was 2 times with Sammy. One time when I had to sit down with Patrick Bet-David. I didn't lose control then. But we had we were on again. I forget what happened. I think Patrick was on with us. And I really blasted him.
Okay.
I did it purposely.
Purposely.
Yeah.
So you could have controlled yourself.
I could have, yeah.
But you wanted to do it on purpose.
I wanted to do it, yeah.
Why?
I just wanted to make up for what we didn't do that time because I knew there's a lot of people tuning in. I said, all right, now I'm going to show you the other side.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
But we became friends after that.
Yeah. He's reverted to Christianity, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
Christianity is something I want to talk about because I feel like if the West loses Christianity, that's the end of the West.
I agree.
In Dubai, it's cool to be religious. It's cool
Really?
to believe in God. It's cool to
Really?
do the right thing. If you don't do Ramadan during the Ramadan month, you almost don't fit in. Even white people that come there, expats, they do Ramadan. But here in Australia, I'm from Australia, but even in America, I assume it's the same culture. At schools, it's not cool to believe in God. It's not cool to pray.
Well, that's been the trend over this woke trend over the past, 20 years or so. Prior to that, look, this is a Christian nation. Anybody can deny it or whatever, but it's biblical. I mean, it's in my book. Our founding fathers founded this country on Christian biblical principles. There's no doubt about it. People try to obscure that now and say it's not so, but it absolutely is so, and it's been that way, for hundreds of years until this happened. But this woke cult that it is has affected everything, not only religion. It's affected everything in society. Every type of moral issue that we have has been affected by that. So I think it's going to go away. I think this new administration, the new thinking, people that found this very distasteful were afraid to talk because you got attacked. But now that seems to be coming to an end.
You're a religious man. God didn't make us perfect. We're sinful creatures. At this current stage in your life, what's your favorite sin?
My favorite sin. Well, first of all, I don't consider myself religious. When I hear the word religious, it's like very legalistic to me. I'm a person of faith, Gosh.
What's your favorite sin?
That's a hard one to answer.
It could be to your left.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this is sinful. I've had some people, Michael, you're a Christian. Why are you selling wine? I said, well, you haven't read your Bible. I said, the first miracle that Jesus performed was turning water into wine at the behest of his mother. I love wine, no doubt about it. And that's why I'm in the wine business. It's one of the reasons. I look at wine differently. When I was 10 years old, my grandfather in his basement in Brooklyn, who came over here from Italy in 1903, was making wine. And he fed it to all of us. My dad was one of 19 kids. And every one of his brothers and sisters had 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. I'm one of 7, right? So we were all drinking wine at 10 years old, 9 years old, 12 years old. It was always around the dinner. It was always with family. It was always bringing people together. I didn't go to a bar and order a glass of wine. When I shouldn't say that. I ordered a white wine spritzer, wine and soda. That was my drink. And I'd sip it the whole night.
Sweet wine.
So I look at wine as more of a family, community, this is what we do. Us guys went out to dinner, we had a couple of bottles of wine on the table. We ate it with our dinner. We drank it with our dinner. So it's one of my sinful pleasures, if you want to categorize it that way, yeah. And I love to eat.
Yeah.
Love to eat. Food is, we're big on food.
Well, eating's not a sin, but gluttony is.
Gluttony is.
Overeating.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what about the 30-year-old Michael? What was your favorite sin then?
Oh, gosh.
Womanizer.
Listen, I had my own jet plane. I had a yacht. I had a helicopter. I had 3 houses around the. I guess spending money was my, I was making a lot, so I was spending a lot, and enjoying all of it. I didn't just have it. I enjoyed it. My plane, I used it all the time. My helicopter, every single day. Boat, I bought a house in Florida, put it in the backyard, and enjoyed it. So my sinful pleasures were enjoying myself. At that time, making time to do that. I didn't really have any real vices that I can say, wow, I didn't do drugs. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink to excess. I just had fun. That was it.
Where's that jet now?
Gone. Gave it to the government as part of my restitution.
Okay. Was there any assets that the government couldn't get their hands on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Where's it buried?
That's the number one question I get asked. I open it up from, it's actually 3 questions. You want to know what they are?
Tell me.
Where's all your money? Who killed Jimmy Hoffa? And how many guys did you kill? I don't care where I am. I'm in Singapore, they asked me that question.
Wow.
Wherever I am, those are the top 3 questions.
Yeah. And you obviously say no comment to all of them.
No, I answer them all.
Do you?
Yeah.
How many people did you kill?
Well, I said, that's something that I'm not going to admit to, but, we can talk about it, My answer to that is very simple. Look, credibility is everything to me. I spent 20 some odd years on the street. If I were to tell somebody I don't know of any incidents of violence, I'd lose my credibility. So I tell them straight, listen, it's a violent life at times. And if you're part of the life, you're part of the violence. I'll leave it up to you to decide what that means.
Yeah, of course, I understand. I've heard you answer that as well. Does any of that haunt you? Like, like looking back on it now, on planned executions, whatever, let's have a catch up, let's have a meeting, and obviously you know that this person's going out and not walking out. Does any of that experiences that you've seen haunt you?
You know, I don't know if the word is haunt, but you know, one incident in particular, a very dear friend of mine was killed. He did some bad things according to our life. And I couldn't save him, and I tried, and that hurts. I think about that quite often because we're very close to the family. You don't want to see things like that happen. But other than that, you know, I will tell you this. I deal with things pretty well, but my wife says I fight a lot in my sleep. And I think these things come out subconsciously. I really believe that because there's incidents. I mean, one night, I don't know what I did. I threw a punch and knocked my computer. I keep my computer in my bed because my wife doesn't like the TV on. I like to fall asleep with my television. So I'm watching Netflix or whatever on a computer and fall asleep. And I gave it a punch. I knocked it across the room, broke the computer, the whole bit. But that happens a lot. So I think that's when it happens. Because who am I fighting now? You know, life is great. I'm not fighting anybody. It's got to be from way back when.
Do you grind your teeth at night?
No.
So you have you punch something, you
Yeah, it's fighting. It's actual
fighting.
Yeah. And she says, sometimes she'll wake me. Who are you fighting? Stop, you know, because it gets intense. And, you know, I had, about 2 years ago, I had that alopecia, you call it. You know, you lose some of your beard. So I go to the doctor. My wife said, go to the doctor. And he says to me, you know, this is caused by stress. Do you have stress? I said, Doc, I don't know what's stress. I don't know. I live my life. I don't know if I have stress or I don't. I've lived a certain way. So do I have a stressful life? I really don't know. Nothing has changed in my head to make anything different than it was 34 years ago. So I don't know the answer to that.
Do you have panic attacks?
No.
You've never had a panic attack?
No.
No. Okay, so just fits at night. So you're probably bottling it in then.
Could be. I don't feel it. You know, do you have anxiety? The only time I have anxiety now is when I have to leave because I'm going on another trip. That's it. If I'm with my wife and the family, it's one thing. But if I got to, like this week, I have anxiety because I'm going to be in 4 different cities. And just a headache of traveling. But other than that, no.
Yeah. Do you wish you had your jet?
I do right now. Yeah. I didn't need it back then.
Yeah.
Back then it was just the, you know, fun thing. But, well, we'll see what happens in the coming year. Yeah.
So another jet's coming. I think, you know, do you know Mo Gaudat?
Who?
Mo Gaudat.
No.
Billionaire, worked for Google, the 5th employee, lost his son to a routine operation to remove your appendix. The doctor's done it 1,000 times. He made 5 mistakes. After that incident, he sold everything. He sold his 26 cars. He lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in Dubai. Very famous guy. He's done many podcasts. He was actually the most viewed podcast on Diary of a CEO.
Really?
And he says over time, he says to me, he said, for you, happiness, he wrote the book Soul for Happy. Happiness, unhappiness only happens when you fall under your expectations. So I'd imagine you would have an expectation of flying private. And when you fall under that, I feel like then your unhappiness would start prevailing. Do you feel like that, or have you dissolved that completely?
Yeah, I mean, I fly business or first class, so I don't have a problem with that. But no, you know, believe it or not, I'm not an elaborate type of guy. I mean, I don't wear, you know, gold watches and all that. I was never that way. I enjoyed those, you know, my helicopter. You know, I bought a helicopter because I was on trial in Manhattan, right? And I lived in Long Island. And to get into Manhattan every day was 2 hours with the traffic. So I bought a helicopter and I hired a pilot. He was the same pilot that piloted my plane. Great guy. And I said, let's buy it. So it took me 16 minutes to get in and 16 minutes to get home. So I bought it for convenience. Also at the time, I was defrauding the government out of tax on every gallon of gasoline. I had 350 gas stations. So I just used my helicopter to go and collect the cash.
Yeah.
Put it in a helicopter, the feds couldn't follow me, you know. So it was a convenience, you know, and it was a work product. I needed it. But I wasn't an elaborate type of guy. I didn't do it for that reason. You know, I was never really into cars. I bought a Mercedes. I had 2 car dealerships that I owned, a Mazda and a Chevrolet agency, and I had a leasing company. I would always have a nice car for one reason. I'd drive it into Brooklyn, where I'd met all the guys. Hey, I want that car, man. It's beautiful. I knew just what they wanted. I said, hey, bring me the cash, drive me home. You got it. Never fell in love with a car. It was a piece of iron to me to make money with, right? Even now, I bought one Mercedes for myself. I'll never forget, a little SL convertible. And I loved that car. And from that point on, I never had anything but a Mercedes because they were reliable. They hold their value and they're comfortable. That's all I care about. You know, people, oh, you should have a Bentley. You should have, yeah, they're all beautiful. I like Mercedes.
Did you ever have a Ferrari?
No.
You never had a Lamborghini?
No, because they're too low and I don't like sitting down in them. I like being up high.
What about a Rolls Royce?
I had a Rolls for a short time.
Okay.
It was okay.
Which one?
Oh, I forget which one it was. This was 25 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget.
Did you have a driver?
Huh?
Did you have a driver with it?
No.
No.
I hated limousines.
Uh-huh.
I don't like to be in the back of a limousine.
Okay.
I mean, let me correct that. I didn't have a driver, but I never drove. One of my guys would drive me around. I always sat in the passenger seat.
Going back to your friend who you couldn't save, were you there when you got whacked?
No.
You weren't there. You didn't want to be there.
No. No. And was I positive it was going to happen? I wasn't positive, but I mean, he did violate our situation. There's no question about it, and it was personal. And but it didn't matter. I mean, I still didn't want it to happen, but it was tough. It was very tough.
Were you ever present when somebody was planned to get whacked?
Listen, as part of that life, people die, no doubt. And I was in a position of authority. I was a cop of the regime. And sometimes you had to decide the fate of somebody. I will tell you this, something I learned, and I attribute to my dad, who taught me a lot of good things. He said, Michael, always be the last person to judge somebody, because your turn is going to come, and people are going to remember how you judge the others. Be the last person. So I was always the last standout to fight for somebody, even if they were wrong. Say, you know, you try. And that's the principle I maintained throughout my time on the street.
What's the scariest moment that you've had that still haunts you?
Without a doubt, you know, one of the horrors, and I think you might have heard this of that life, you know, you make a mistake, your best friend walks you into a room, you don't walk out again. Well, I had that experience one night, and I was scared. I thought that this could be it for me. And, you know, people have asked me, well, Michael, why didn't you cut and run? Because I had the opportunity to do that. I said, it wasn't heroic. It was robotic. You become so much a part of something that I said, hey, if this is it, this is it. Now, I was still scared. Don't get me wrong. I didn't want to show people I was scared. They've probably seen it. But that was scary. Yeah. That's something I'll never forget. As a matter of fact, when I talk about it, I have a vision of it.
Wow.
I can even, it was a summer night in August, and I had to walk 30 yards from the car to a downstairs apartment. And I'm telling you, this is the truth. As I talk about it, I can see fireflies because they were present that night. And I can almost smell the aroma of the fragrance, I should say, of the flowers. It was heavy that night. And I found out one thing. I wasn't religious back then. If you think you're going to meet your maker, you start to pray. Trust me.
Real quick.
Praying. Oh, yeah. No doubt.
I want to talk about your father. Is there just a big gaping hole in your heart now that he's not around?
I love my dad, yeah, and I miss him. You know, things, I don't want to say went sideways when I walked away from that life, but it wasn't the same. Even though he understood, And quietly, secretly, he was happy about it because he wanted me to preserve my family. He loved my family. And he knew in that life I couldn't. I had become too much of a target, too big a bullseye on my back. And I said, Dad, the only way to me preserve my life and my family is to get away from this. Nobody's going to survive. I'm certainly not. They indicted me 7 times, 5 trials, 2 federal racketeering cases. They're not going to let you go. You can beat them. They can drain you financially. Tried to do it with Trump. But eventually you're going to go down. And you don't go down. When you had my profile, you don't go down for 5 years or 10. You go down for 100.
Yeah.
Life is over. So he understood. But my dad's entire, what was so important to him in that life was his legacy. He wanted to be the guy known to never snitch, never talk to the government, die with his boots on. My whole family was destroyed as a result of that position, but he died with his boots on. So, you know, I understand it. I appreciate it. Is it right? That's for people to decide. But I love my dad, and I miss him.
Yeah. I'd imagine, you know, I read that they said your dad was probably the most perfect mobster. Everything that he did, everything that he stood for. So I'd imagine if that was my dad and I lost him, I'd be looking for him every day.
Yeah. I mean, look, I used to run things by him. He would run things by me. And it was a great combination. There's no question in my mind, and people might say, oh, come on, Mike. Had my dad not went to jail and I was in that life, he would have been the boss. There's no question. My dad had charisma. He knew how to deal with people, and he was a powerful guy. There's no question. He would have been the boss. And so we would have been in control of that family. And who knows what would happen with me? I don't know. But it didn't happen that way. It wasn't meant to be.
Were you scared of your dad?
No, never.
No.
When I was in prison, I walked away, and the feds came in. They said, you know, Persico put a contract on your life. He was my boss. I said, okay, I accept that. I knew it was going to happen. And your father went along with it. I said, okay.
Was that a lie, though?
Here's what it was. My dad, probably to save himself also. Hey, I don't know what my son is doing, but if he violated our oath, what are we going to do? You know, he would do that. Would my dad ever put a gun to my head? No. No way.
Yeah.
So no, I wasn't scared of my dad, you know. But he had to do what he had to do because, you know, nobody knew what I was going to do. You don't walk away from that life. Never heard of that. Guys say, yeah, you walk away. The next thing you know, they're on the witness stand testifying, you know. But I knew it wasn't going to come to that. There was no way. And I kept sending word. I'm not doing that. Don't worry about it. You know how I am. I know how to get around people. I'm going to try to manipulate the government whatever way I can. And that's exactly what I did. And the government have said it. Hey, you know, he pulled the wool over our eyes. He never gave anybody up of any significance. He never testified against anybody. So, you know, and in the end, it played out that way. But during that time, nobody knew. So, yeah, I had some rough moments.
Did your father have any stories to tell you that you could tell to us about Lucky Luciano, Al Capone? Did he have any stories or run-ins with them?
He knew them. He knew Mylansky. He knew Lucky, met Lucky. When I say knew, you know, Lucky was going through a lot of stuff at that time, being deported and everything else, but he knew him. He had the occasion to meet with him. No real stories. Same with Mylansky. So nothing, you know, I mean, my dad told me a lot of stories, I mean, about things. Some of them I can't repeat, but, you know, nothing that would be so earth-shattering now that I might not have spoken about before.
Okay. But the ones that you haven't released, those would be.
Yeah.
Just give us something.
Huh?
Give us.
It's hard, you know.
Too many years have gone.
Huh?
Too many years have gone.
Let's keep talking. Maybe something will come
Maybe
back.
something will come up. Okay. Because, you know, I'm fascinated with Lucky Luciano. I used to live in New York, and I would go to where he used to live just to breathe the air in the lobby. He had an apartment he used to live in across the road from Central Park. And I would just go into the lobby and I'll talk to the guy and say, Lucky Luciano used to live here. I said, yeah. And I just look at the walls and everything. And I just love that, that era.
Well, Lucky revolutionized, our life here, Cosa Nostra here in America. He was a business guy, and he was the one that understood that we had to operate like a business. And he and Meyer Lansky, I have to give Lansky credit, they created, the commission, and they divided the families up here in our country. And it was from that point that we really became organized crime. Prior to that, it was just, guys running around trying to make a living. Good living in some ways. Prohibition did that for us, but he was the one that organized it and really, really made us powerful in this country.
Is the Mafia still around? It is around, but is it still how it was in terms of you make a mistake, you get whacked?
Yeah, well, that happens, yeah. But, I always say this, the golden era of Cosa Nostra in this country was really from when Lucky organized it in the mid-40s through the mid-80s, when the racketeering statute came in and was used very effectively. The leader of that was Rudy Giuliani, no doubt. And, but during that time, we had it going on in this country. We controlled a lot of the country because we controlled the unions. You control the unions, you control politicians. Why? What do politicians want? They want two things. They want votes and they want money. You got unions, you got millions of votes. They want you. And you got huge pension funds, to support their campaigns. So when you had that kind of clout, you control the country in a big way. Not, I'm saying you control the entire country, but you have a big thing, a big input. We've lost that. We've lost that. It's not the same. The racketeering statute was devastating. And it was used very effectively and put everybody in jail.
But they're still around. Cosa Nostra is still around.
Still around.
Are they heavily targeted as they were back in your time?
No. Give you an example. During my time, in New York alone, we have 5 families. Maybe 750 guys comprised, made guys that actually took the oath. We had a lot of associates, but they were kind of outsiders. 750 guys. You had 1,400 FBI agents. You had 2 agents for every 1 guy. All right? Today, you got less than 100 agents on all 5 families because it's not necessary anymore.
They're not as powerful.
No.
But they're still being persecuted and they're still being hunted.
Yeah. I mean, look, during my era, you had the New York Times, the Daily News, New York Post, Long Island Press. There wasn't a day that went by when there wasn't a mob story in one of those papers or all of them. Not a day. Today, I read the New York Post every morning. Maybe every 6 months you'll see a story. And what's happening? Guys got busted for gambling. Oh my God, same thing over and over again. It's like nothing new, It's the same stuff over and over again. But it's not as prevalent at all. Now the FBI, it's terrorism, it's cyber crime, it's whatever. It's going after the people they don't like, in the Trump case and all that. But the big focus is not on Cosa Nostra. It's not.
Do you go to Italy often? Sorry, do you go to New York often?
Yeah.
Do you walk down Mulberry Street?
Yeah.
Do you get a rush of memories, nostalgia?
Yeah. And people.
And people.
Yeah. They notice. Yeah.
They notice you. People not from the life, obviously, but people that have noticed you from social media.
Well, you know this. When you have a big social media platform, you get noticed everywhere. So it's pretty prevalent now. Usually in airports. Crazy. I don't know why. People from all over. Airports are big.
That's why you dread traveling.
You know what? I'm a people guy. Here's another thing my dad taught me, and some of these people that, have their head in the clouds should know. My dad told me this. He said, Michael, always be kind and courteous and respectful to the little people. When he said little people, he didn't mean that in a demeaning way. It was just the way he talked, right? He didn't express himself that way. He said, those are the people that make you strong. He said, the people on the top, they're always looking to cut your legs out. And I found out to be true. So what, you go to a restaurant, treat the waiter right. Treat the valet parker right. Give people courtesy. And my social media platform and I've been speaking now for 30 years, spoken all over the world. I'll take the time to take a photo with somebody, shake their hands, talk to them, because these people are supporting you. Somebody tells some of these movie guys, George Clooney every day, hey, they're buying your tickets. Who do you think you are? Because you have a talent you were gifted with that you could act, all of a sudden you became a big shot. These people don't buy your tickets, you're nothing. Treat people the right way. it comes back to you in a big way. And I guess it's innate. It's somewhat of who you are. But I found that to be extremely helpful. Networking in my life has brought me such big dividends. You meet with people, you never know. You meet somebody today, hey, you talk, you have a conversation, they like you like him, nothing happens. Maybe a year from now, you get involved in some, hey, I met a guy at one point in time, boom. Networking, very important. So you say, well, what's the secret to your success? I'm not a brilliant businessman. I'll tell you that right now. My motto is, hey, do what you do best, delegate the rest. You can't micromanage. There's a lot of things that I don't do well because I don't like doing them, especially at my age now. I'm not going to get involved in things I don't like to do anymore. Why should I, right? Hire the right people and motivate them to do the right job. If you know how to do that, you got a good shot at success.
How come you don't have an ego? Because you are a good businessman. You were the top earner for the Mafia in history. You made what, 8 million a week, 2 million you were giving to the family.
Well, I created a scheme. Yeah, it was a complex scheme that I created with a friend, a partner. I got to give him a lot of the credit because he was brilliant in that regard. And the foundation of the scheme was really his. I was able to perfect it and manage it properly because if you have a business, if you can't get it to a place where it's running perfectly for you and then manage it properly, you don't have anything. I was able to do that. So does that qualify me for being a brilliant businessman? I don't think so. I just knew how to manage people. And I knew what a good deal looked like. I had the foresight for that. It's okay, this could work. And you pursue it.
So if you weren't a good businessman, how come the other people weren't able to do it? My point is you don't have an ego, right? You I don't know why. Why have you never had an ego? When you had the jets, when you had the 8 million coming in a week, did you have an obnoxious ego at that time?
No. You know what got this is really crazy. This is gonna say, you're kidding me. Shah of Iran. Was he the wealthiest man in the world one time?
Probably.
Okay. Wealthy. I used to read a lot about him back then. Died of cancer. All his money, all his fame, all his power, couldn't save himself. For some reason, that stuck in my head. I've seen some of the most powerful guys on the street, okay, that life and death at their fingertips, died in prison in somebody else's underwear. Wow. You don't know. When you think that you're above and beyond everybody, that's when you fall. So I've always maintained that. And again, I give my dad credit to that too. He said, listen, Michael, remember this. This life that we're in is like a wheel. You could be on top one day and taking orders from the guy that you abused the next. He said, that's how this life goes. Be very careful. And I understood that. And I've seen powerful people just go by the wayside. So when you start thinking that you're above that, that's when you're headed to your downfall. So I can honestly say, listen, you talk about ego. If you're successful, there's got to be a little bit of narcissism in you. You got to believe that you can handle something. I'll tell you what happened to me. Prior to my going to prison, I believed that there's nothing I couldn't handle. I just had that confidence. It wasn't arrogance, it was confidence. Big difference between arrogance and confidence. I appreciate confidence. I don't like arrogance in people. And they turn me off. I don't care who you are. So when I got violated on my parole and went into jail the second time, first time I took a plea, I knew what I was going, I'm okay. I got this. This was part of my plan. Second time when they violated me, and because the government was very upset with me, I wouldn't cooperate to the way they wanted me to. The first night in prison was the worst night of my life because I really felt there's nothing I can do. I have no way out. For the first time in my life, I don't have an answer. And the not having an answer means maybe spending the rest of my life here, losing everything that I have, everything that's dear to me. That night was a very bad night. And it really brought me to my knees emotionally and every other way. And I was a non-ego guy up to that point. I became even more of that afterwards because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm thankful for every day of my life because every day is a gift.
When I podcast with people, I find that when they've gone through a life or death situation, they always live their life differently. From anyone I've done podcasts with, guys have had guns in their mouth, they thought they were going to die. Ever since that day, every day is just a gift.
Yeah.
Which could be a business idea, by the way, because my mum needs to be more grateful. And imagine if there's a company that you can hire to kidnap your mum for 3 days and then just go, look, it was all a hoax, but just kind of wake up a little bit. I don't know.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes, you know, you have to have an experience that really, really matters, really has an impact on you. You know, I tell people this, well, why, Michael, why are you such a person of faith? You know, I say, listen, I'm not a perfect guy. I still sin. I don't live in a pattern of sin anymore. You can't be a Christian, a person of faith, and live in a pattern of sin and still claim to be a faithful person. You can't do that. But I said, something's happened to me. When I was in jail, and I was in a 6x8 cell for 29 months and 7 days, I can always tell you the hours, I developed a very healthy fear of hell. I said, if this is what hell is like, but a million times worse, never ending, think of the worst thing that ever happened to you in your life. Never ending.
Wow.
And worse. I said, I don't want any part of this. That motivated me to become a person of faith because I did the research my Bible. I had my wife send me a book on every other faith. I was looking for evidence. I said, look, if I'm going to spend the rest of my life here and there is an eternity, I want to know where I'm going. If it's Christianity, I want to know if it's true. If it's whatever it is, I want to follow that because what else do I have to do? May as well prepare for the afterlife. I got nothing going here. I was a young guy. I was only in my 40s. So to get a healthy fear of things that are bad for you is great. It's a great motivator. I have a healthy fear of drugs. Never took a drug, except for that half a Quaalude 35, 40 years ago when I was having a wild night with some woman, before I was married or anything else. Kid, she gave it to me. And it was a good night, I'll be honest with you. But I never took a drug after that, because my sister at 27 died of an overdose of drugs. I watched what that kid went through. My brother, 25 years a drug addict. I don't want any part of that. Why? Maybe I'm going to like it. And then I'm going to fall into that same mess. Don't bring it near me. I don't even want to try it. It's good to have I have a healthy fear of gambling. I saw more guys destroy their life with gambling. It's like the secret killer. Doesn't come in your eyes or anything. Before you know it, you're in debt. You're a crazy maniac addiction. I saw it. And unfortunately, I used that. I took advantage of that in people at times when I was on the street. We did it. I'm going to be honest. No good. So good to have a healthy fear of things that are just no good for you. Stay away from it.
You mentioned your brother. Your brother was a drug addict for many years.
25 years.
25 years. And then he became an informant against your dad.
Yeah.
Are you in touch with your brother? Do you see him? Right now you are.
I didn't speak to my brother for 10 years. I watched him testify against my dad at trial. It was heartbreaking. I love my brother. You know, heartbreaking. He put me through hell, just trying to save him, keep him alive on the street. 70th birthday party, surprise, this house. My wife contacts him, and he comes.
And she didn't tell you?
No. Total shock. And I saw him, and I immediately embraced him. You know, I don't agree with what he did, and he knows that. But I love my brother. But you know what it is? I sat down with him, and he said something to me. I said, bro, what's up, man? You know, and he said, look, he said, do you have any idea what we went through as kids? We had a very turbulent life. My dad in and out of jail, cops around us all the time, with a lot of disruption. He said, for some reason, you were able to handle it, but none of us could. He said, it drove me crazy. It drove our sister crazy. She died of an overdose. My younger sister, 40 years old, mentally unstable. She dies at 40. Smoked like a chimney. She was just a wreck. My mother, 33 years without a husband, right? My mother was not all there, I have to say that. She's a very difficult woman. She said, the whole family was destroyed. For some reason, you were blessed. He said, but I just couldn't deal with it the right way. And you know what? I said, you know what? I get it. And Peter, oh, your brother's a rat and this and that. Leave me alone. You don't know what went on in our household, and I don't have to share it with you. But don't tell me not to love my brother, you know? And so, yeah, as a matter of fact, he is telling me now I'm ready to talk about this in a big way. And he's actually we're going to sit down right here and we're going to talk about it. And I want him to express whatever it is you want to express, you know? And, you know, but it's sad. He's 19 years clean now. but his life, you wouldn't want it. I mean, he's in charge. I got to give him credit. He actually handles a couple of rehab facilities, and he's helping other guys now and people in that situation. So he's turned his life in that direction. But he lives alone. You know, he's not married. It's tough. It's tough to see him that way.
But now you talk to him often.
Yeah.
You're back on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, look, your father's life, nobody would want that either, right? The environment that, from what I've read, the environment, even for the kids, it's a miracle that you were able to be the man that you are. I want to know how you deal with anger, because somebody in your position, you have people that owe you money, you have people that try to backstab you, people that lie behind your back, especially in that world, people that are jealous of you, successful, young. How do you deal with anger? And looking back on it now, what advice would you give yourself about dealing with anger?
Well, you know, honestly, at times I do have a short fuse, and certain things just get to me, you know. But I can't control it most of the time. You know, like there were things in that life that sometimes were hard to tolerate. But again, you have to be strategic. You have to be strategic in that life. You know, you can't fly off the handle at the wrong times. It's dangerous. It's deadly at times. I've seen people make that mistake. You just can't do it. You know, when a guy was that way in that life, eventually somebody said, what do we need to deal with this guy? He's a loose cannon. Just take him out. Get rid of him. And that's what happened. Everybody I knew in that life that had that kind of personality, gone. Why deal with him? We don't have to. We're killers, basically. Let's get rid of him so we don't have to worry about him. You know, so, but there are times when I can snap, and I don't like it, because then I'm not a good guy at that point.
What do you like when you snap? Especially when you're in that life.
I'm quick.
Quick to grab your gun?
I'm quick. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I don't linger.
Yeah.
In that life, because
you don't keep God waiting. You send that person to God.
Yeah, and it's you got to get me to that point, but it's not good.
What makes you angry right now? What really gets under your skin right now?
Silly things. Yesterday I got angry with a TSA agent because I'm executive platinum on American, and this is maybe when some of the ego comes in. I'm executive platinum. I get millions of miles. I don't know how many points. And I'm with my wife, and they wouldn't let me take a third bag on that was as big as this book.
Oh, damn.
And I said, excuse me. I said, I have to put it in my... And she just didn't respond. She was very discourteous. It was a woman. No, I didn't do anything, but inside I was very angry. You know, just because I'm being nice to you, be courteous back. Yeah. You know, silly.
Yeah.
Really, my wife said, seriously, this is going to bother you? I said, well, she should know better. You know, she said, talk to people the right way. It's just stuff like that.
You didn't do anything about it?
No.
You didn't, no. You held it in?
Like writer? No, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I said, okay. And I heard her say, what seat is this guy sitting in? I said, okay, bring it on.
Oh, I see.
But nothing happened.
But you're going to deal with it tonight when you go to sleep. That laptop's going to get it.
No, I don't think that's that significant enough, yeah.
Because I've noticed, I miss Dubai. I can't wait to go back to Dubai. The service, everyone here, everywhere I go, I feel like, I'm sorry, I ordered that burger. Like, it's almost like, I don't know, like they're doing you a favor, right? And it's entitlement, really.
But you know what? That's fairly recent. I'm telling you, there's an attitude that, and it's all this woke nonsense. What else could it be? There's an attitude change.
So it hasn't been like this before?
No, no.
You don't remember it like this?
No. You know, things have really changed in the last several years, really. People do feel entitlement. I mean, ever since the pandemic, people think they don't have to go into the office and work anymore. Well, why not? It's over. Go to work, you know? Our government people. I mean, government people are, you know, I mean, you don't want to get me started on that. But yeah, there's a feeling of entitlement that people believe they have, you know? And it's not good to get something for nothing. All these government handouts, they spoil people, they ruin people. you lose your responsibility. You know, it's just wrong. And it's not, look, there are people that are in need of things and we want to take care of them. You know, we're a gracious country in that regard. But to a certain point, you know, help them help themselves. I agree with that. I believe in that. And give them the avenue to help themselves afterwards. We should be doing that. We should be benevolent in that regard. But not to a point where it makes you entitled and lazy. And it's happening in this country, really.
See, for me, I thought that was America. I didn't know it was never like that.
No, it was not, honestly. I mean, after the pandemic, I mean, I have pizza stores. We couldn't get people to work for $20 an hour serving pizza over the counter. I may as well, the government's giving me more for staying home. But that lasted. They didn't realize, oh, it's temporary. We're getting you through a rough time. That was ridiculous anyway. It was all nonsense what happened during the pandemic. They lied to us. But it stayed in their head. And I don't understand people like that. I really don't. You know, it's tough for me to understand that mentality.
You mentioned cancer before. Why are all the old timers from the Mafia dying from cancer? What is it that you guys used to eat, drink all the time? Because you look at the history, cancer, death, cancer, John Gotti, death, cancer.
A lot of drinking, a lot of smoking. That's, I mean, I'd have to attribute it to that. I mean, guys drank a lot and they smoked a lot. Really, I mean, if you want to look at, you know, medical reasons, you'd have to say that. And they didn't live a great lifestyle, you know.
Yeah.
Guys were out partying all night long. I mean, look, my life back then, I didn't drink or smoke, but, you know, I get up at 5:30, 6 in the morning, have breakfast, I'm out.
Yeah.
Come home for dinner, eat a couple hours, 10 o'clock, I'm out again till 2, 3 in the morning. That was my life. So a lot of guys indulged while they were doing that, you know, and it's not healthy.
And you didn't?
No. I mean, no.
Now, because you didn't, in the smoking and in the drinking, did that not make you, did that not, I would imagine that wouldn't have made you fit in.
No.
No?
No. I think, I mean, because I partied, don't get me wrong. I'd be out in the clubs and I'd be doing that, but and I wasn't the only guy like that. There was guys that just didn't do, you know, they didn't indulge in that. But I was there. Listen, I enjoyed being with my guys. I had a good crew. We had a lot of fun together. I enjoyed it. So, I mean, we had a good time, you know.
Are all of them dead?
What's that?
Are all of them dead?
Every one of them.
There's no one you can call from that life.
One guy, and he's my partner. I know him 40 years.
How did he get out of that life?
He was smart and he was blessed. He was, long story short, sitting in a car. They were talking about a murder. The car was bugged. And every time they went to him, all he did was go like this or like this. Never opened his mouth. He was the only guy that escaped that indictment. And then he left town and never went back. Came out to the West Coast. And he said, I escaped that. I'm not taking any chances.
Is there a real risk of you guys being targeted right now? Or no, it's too much gone, too much time has passed, too many people have gone.
I'll tell you how many times people have asked me to run for office. They wanted me to run for mayor of Las Vegas. I have people here wanting me to run for governor of California. I said, listen, I'm out of that life 35 years. If I were to run for public office, everything that happened 35 years ago, people will make it sound like it happened this morning. And we're going to dig all of this up again, and I'll become a target again. I'm not delusional. I'm doing all these great things. Yeah, you know, people love me. I've been mentoring people, and I've been speaking and sharing my faith now. Over 2,000 appearances in ministries and in prisons and all these wonderful things, right? I feel people that have been given much is expected in return. That's my mindset. Let me make a mistake. All of that will go out the window, and I'll be the mob guy again. Oh, he never changed. He's this and that. Like that.
They'll come after you. They'll try to...
Without a doubt.
Yeah. They'll try to do a hit piece on you.
Without a doubt.
Drag your name through the mud.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that you visit regularly in prison?
Now?
Right now?
No. They're all gone. I don't know anybody in prison right
So you basically left that life and then you waited it out. You went in that life, you didn't keep any patterns, you were, you know, discreet about your movements, your location, and then you waited it out until people started dying. or going to prison?
Yeah. Well, I had to leave New York. I could never have made it in New York because there's too many guys.
Of course.
You know, impossible. So I knew I had to leave the state. Came out to California. You know, when people are upset, it's one thing to walk somebody into a room. They don't, you know, walk them in a room, they don't walk out again. It's another thing to send a hit squad across the country, you know, try to kill somebody that's aware of it and doesn't create the opportunities for you to do that. It's a whole different because, you know, murder, you go down forever. You don't want to go, you don't want to get indicted for murder, convicted of murder. So I knew what I had to do in order to survive. And then, yeah, I just outlasted everybody. But, you know, when people realized that I wasn't out to hurt anybody, then the heat was off. And I'm gonna reveal something right now. I'm coming out of prison. I had gotten out of the hole. I had 6 months left to go. I had 3 months left to go. I get a call, the warden in the prison calls me and he says, there's a reporter from the Daily News that wants to speak to you. He says, Michael, talk to him. You know, they have to tell you and you can agree or not agree, right? I said, I'll talk to him. So I get him on the phone. He says, so-and-so became an informant and he's implicated you in 5 murders. What do you have to say? I said, he's lying. I said, you know, guys become informants, they make up stories, they lie. Boom, hang up the phone. I said, my God. I go to the law library. This is the last 3 months of before my release, finally. And I start to do research. I said, well, they can't get me for murder as a federal crime. I said, because I've been out of that life. The only way you can get murder in a federal crime is if it's part of a RICO statute. It's an act as part of the statute. I said, then they have to prove I'm part of a criminal enterprise for the last 5 years. They know I haven't been. I've been in jail and I'm out of the life. That they know. So it's not the feds I have to worry about. It's the state because there's no statute of limitations on murder. This guy's lying, but he can implicate me. The FBI comes to see me in prison. Hey, either you go along and testify along with this guy against all these guys that we want, because I could have hurt a lot of people. I knew a lot of people. Or we're going to indict you. I says, indict me. This guy's a liar. Do what you got to do. I didn't sleep one night. I said, I'm going to walk out this door. The state's going to be waiting for me with a detainee. They're going to pick me up, bring me back to New York. I'm going to be in for murder, right? This guy. Well, that didn't happen. They didn't indict me. But I'll tell you what I did. I sent word back to New York and I said, listen, this is what's going on. They want me to cooperate. I'm not going to cooperate. Leave me alone. I told you I wasn't going to hurt anybody. I'll fight them. Leave me alone. So they knew I could have buried them, right? A couple of guys. What happened to the informant? They caught him lying through his ass and they threw him out of the witness protection program and everything that he said, they threw out. That's how blessed I was and all of these other guys. But I made them understand. I told you I'm not going to hurt anybody. That just put it to bed.
Trump's in power. And he has signed an executive order to release all the JFK documents. Now I'm sitting next to Michael Franzese, known mobster. Do you have any first-hand information that the mob was involved with the assassination of JFK?
100%. There is no question that the mob was involved in that assassination. No doubt. I've heard it my whole life, and I've heard it from people in the know, starting with my father. I'll tell you the first indication. I'm 12 years old, sitting on the back porch of my house when Kennedy got shot, 63. I go in the house, Dad, my mom and Dad are sitting there, and my mom was practically in tears. And my father said, what are you crying over that rat for? The whole family's a bunch of rats. They deserve to die. Those were my father's words, right? I'm a kid, 12 years old. I don't know. Cut to, for the rest of my life, in that life, from people like Persico and Tony Salerno and my dad and everybody in the know, people I knew from Chicago, 100% it was a mob hit. The evidence is there. They just don't want to disclose it. Here's the biggest indication, in my view, of whether those classified documents that are released are not doctored and redacted and BS. Jack Ruby, 100% tied up with the mob. From the days of Capone to Ocado in Chicago to what's his name, and to the guy in New Orleans, 100%. All the strip joints were part of it. He was part of our life. Jack Rubenstein, Jewish guy, right? 100% a gangster with us. They have tried to say that he had no connection to the mob. Jack Ruby was set up to kill Oswald. 100%. And he was set up by us. We hated the Kennedys. Why? Number one, we delivered the state of Illinois to John F. Kennedy. Very tight race with him and Nixon. Illinois won the election for him. We delivered it through our union control and through our, working for him in that state. The deal was with Joe Kennedy, who was a bootlegger. They tried to say he wasn't. He was tied up with Costello. Costello wanted to kill him at one point. Okay? The deal was that they were supposed to back off the mob. R.F. Kennedy gets in, becomes the Attorney General. He goes after us even heavier. He's the guy that put my father in jail. 100%. It wasn't the FBI. It was his ordering the FBI to put my father in jail. J. Edgar Hoover wouldn't even admit to the fact that the mob was alive because we had dirt on him. He kept saying there is no mafia. This is all fact. That this is not something I'm making up. It's fact, right? So Jack Ruby hired to kill Oswald. Okay, now I will tell you this. I don't know what the government, why they had it in for Kennedy. Maybe it was because of the Bay of Pigs. Maybe because he was soft on communism. Who knows? I don't know why. They were definitely involved in the plot. There's no question about it. But they used us to clean it up with Oswald. Okay? Accardo is on tape saying we killed the wrong Kennedy because Robert F. Kennedy kept going after us. It didn't back off. He's on tape. Carlos Marcello. Okay, Kennedy picked him up, deported him, dropped him in a jungle in South America, and he had to go, find his way back. We hated these people. We were happy to do it. So if these classified documents come out, here's the barometer, right there, here's the test, and they say Jack Ruby had nothing to do with the mob, throw all the papers out, because now it's a big cover-up. But I would take that to my grave. I have no horse in the race. I'm not getting paid to say this. It doesn't benefit me in any way. I could just as easily say we didn't have anything to do with it. 100%, it was a mob hit.
Wow.
Oswald was killed. Right now, was there a second shooter involved with us? I never heard that, so I can't verify that in any way. They say there was a second shooter. This guy files, and who knows? I don't know that, but I know we were 100% involved in Oswald's hit.
How directly was your father with this plan? Involved with this plan?
He knew about it. 100%, because he was one of the guys that hated the Kennedys.
Before it happened?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. He told me afterwards. He said, I'd have killed him myself. Yeah. He said, Bobby, you know the story why he believes Bobby Kennedy put him away.
No.
Yeah. Okay, my dad's in the Stork Club, very famous place in Manhattan, right? Costello owned a piece of it. He's there one night, Marilyn Monroe walks in. Frank says, you want to meet Marilyn? He says, yeah, why not? He meets Marilyn. They have an affair. Right? They have an affair. Now he meets my mother. My mother was a coat check girl there. She was 16 years old. He falls in love with my mother. He leaves Marilyn. Marilyn's in bed with Robert F. Kennedy, right? According to her, she called out my father's name while they're doing that thing in bed. From that point on, Robert Kennedy gets on the phone with Hoover and says, who's this guy, Sonny Franzese? Lock him up. My father swears to that story. I said, come on, Dad. He says, I swear to her. And you know why I kind of believe it? He wouldn't tell me that until my mother passed away.
Wow.
He said, I can tell you this now because I would never disrespect your mother.
Wow.
But let me tell you why. Because I said to him one day, he was in prison again on one of his violations. And I said, Dad, I don't want to hurt your ego. I says, but why? My dad was the John Gotti of his day. I mean, they came after him. But forget it. If there was social media, you wouldn't have known about anybody else but my father. That's how big it was back then, right? Every newspaper, everything, right? I said, Dad, not for anything. I don't want to hurt your ego, but why you? I mean, there were other guys. Joe Colombo was there, Carlo Gambino. They didn't bother these guys. Why did they bother you? He said, I never want to tell you this while your mother was alive, but now I can tell you. And he told me that story. And I said, you know what, Dad? I think there's some truth in this. I think you're telling me the truth. He said, why would I lie? He said, I would never tell you when your mother was alive. He said, that rat, Robert F. Kennedy, came after me because he was jealous of me with Marilyn.
Wow.
And I found out afterwards, Marilyn really dug my dad. He really did. And she was hit by the mob too.
No.
No question.
She was killed by the mob too?
Absolutely, we had
Because she slept with your father?
Yes, that was another. No. That was another thing that we did a favor to the Kennedys, because she was very upset with them because they jilted her, and she was going to start talking about certain things. And there's a whole story behind that. Who visited her first that night? Who dropped the pills there? Trust me. I mean, look, when we knew how to do things, we knew how to clean things up. And you know, another thing in that life, you kill somebody, you don't brag about it. You know, I was taught this. My dad says, if you and I commit a crime, 10 seconds after it's done, if you ask me about it, I'll say, what are you talking about? What's the reason to talk about it ever again? That's how you get yourself in trouble. He used to hold up a phone. He used to say, this isn't a phone. This is a cop for me and you. Don't talk on a phone. So you don't brag about things like that unless you're a jackass. You know, some of these thugs on the street, they don't know any better. But guys with integrity in that life, you don't ever talk about this. It was just the opposite. And they weren't doing it as a badge of, oh, we killed, that rat Kennedy, he destroyed us, he got, you know, they said it in that way, not that they were bragging about it, but that they ruined us, the Kennedys. And we, you know, this is what we had to do. So it was totally the opposite of the mentality in that life. There was no reason for people to say that. So 100%, you can imagine. And the same with Marilyn Monroe.
Wow.
It's another favor done to the Kennedys, and we got screwed on.
So you did that favor for the Kennedys, and then they screwed the mob.
Yeah.
And then that's when the mob went after Kennedy.
Yes. That's when they agreed to work with, listen, the CIA has worked with us how many times before? They worked with Luciano.
Wow.
Who brought the Allies into Sicily and allowed them to land there? It was Luciano that set that up.
That's right.
That's why they released them and deported them back. Okay? Second time, they were going to kill Castro in Cuba. They came to us. There was a whole plot to poison him. Didn't work, but they came to us. Another guy, Greg Scarpa, the state went to him to find out some people that were in a civil rights action. He went down and got the witnesses for them. So the government's come to us many times. This is not just, they came to us for the Kennedys. It wasn't an isolated incident.
Wow.
We opened up, you know, you couldn't get through in World War II. You couldn't get anything through the docks. We controlled all the unions. They had to come to us to bring everything in. And Lucky allowed it to happen.
When you look back at all the mobs, who's the greatest?
You know, my personal greatest, the guy that I thought was the epitome of the mob leader, mob boss, was Frank Costello. He understood it. He was a business guy. They called him the prime minister. He had many political connections. He knew that violence was a last resort, and he wanted to make us into a business. We still had our principles and rules, don't violate. But look, you know, the famous expression out of there, we killed our own. And that's the truth. We weren't out killing people on the streets. You come into our neighborhood, we're Dubai in our neighborhoods. You don't worry about crime. Nobody's going to bother you in our neighborhood unless it's us. You did something wrong. Other than that, you don't have anything to worry about. Okay, so we're not out there killing innocent people. We're not beating innocent people up on the street. That's all nonsense. Did it happen on occasion? Yeah, because you had some dummies in that life like anything else. But was that the rule? No, it was the exception. So Frank Costello, to me, was the epitome. Carlo Gambino ran his family to the biggest, most powerful family in this country for 20 years. Never even went to jail. Died in his home. Smart guys. That's how the life was supposed to be. John Gotti, personally, I like John, wasn't a good boss. You don't throw your chest out to the government and bring, you know, you bring attraction to the life, you know. So
why did you like John? Because John was obnoxious. He was hard to deal with. He was hard to negotiate with. He was an egomaniac, narcissist. What is it that you liked about him?
Socially, he was a lot of fun. You go out to a bar, you drink, you have a lot of fun with him. Down to earth. You know, I guess the first time I met John Gotti was at his son's funeral when his son Frankie got killed.
Car accident.
Yeah. And I saw a different side of him that day. He brought me on the side and we were talking a little bit. He said, you know, I have a lot of respect for your father. We were in the funeral home when we were talking, just me and him for a little bit. And I saw a sensitive side of John that I never forgot. I had run-ins with him after that. He was a nightmare to deal with in business. Narcissistic, he'd never lose an argument. You had to really know how to deal with him. But socially, he was good, and I guess I got that impression of him that never left. And I felt bad for him. I mean, he was, for John, he was broken that night. You've seen it. you know? So maybe that's why I say I liked him. And I like his family. He's got a good family.
Did you ever witness or see high-profile celebrities or politicians that dealt directly with the mafia who haven't been publicly exposed yet?
Publicly exposed?
Yeah.
I think most of them are known. I mean, Jimmy Kahn, everybody knew he was involved with us. Lenny Montana played Luca Brasi, good friend of mine. You know, he was hooked up. You know, I mean, look, we knew a lot of guys. I mean, Sinatra, come on.
Well, I was going to ask you about Sinatra because everybody says the mafia controlled Sinatra, or in a way of, was he controlled by them?
No.
No.
No, he wasn't paying us. He didn't.
Okay.
But, hey, Frank, Italian American Civil Rights League, we're having a big performance. We need you to come. You're not going to say no.
Okay.
Yeah, he comes.
Okay.
Right? But do we take money out of his pocket? No.
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 Did you
I mean,
put money in his pocket?
No. Look, my dad owned a place called the San Susana. It was a big nightclub on Long Island. My dad was in jail, and so I took over, right? Kind of, and they were paying me, and I was a partner in the place, silent partner. Frank Sinatra Jr. is coming to play there, right? No tickets are being sold. So they call me up. Michael, we need help. We need to fill the place. Put the word out. Need everybody there. 2 nights in a row, fill the place. So yeah, we filled it. We did him that favor. He in turn would do a favor for us. You know, it was that way. But it wasn't, hey, we controlled him. You do what I say. You're going to do this. No,
No,
it
it
wasn't
like
that
that.
way. He knew where to. He knew who he had to show respect to.
And I saw that video recently where Sammy the Bull Gravano wanted to go and get Trump, but then last minute they said, look, let's just leave that alone because it's too connected with the government.
I mean, I can't verify that, but Sammy's saying it, so I'm sure it could have happened.
How often do you speak to Sammy?
Quite a bit. I'm going to be doing. He called me up and asked me to do a live thing with him, and probably next week or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to him.
Okay.
I like his family a lot. Sammy, if you know Sammy when he's not on camera and he's not social media, he's a different guy.
Yeah.
In many ways,
Yeah.
you know. Listen, he became a person of faith,
Yeah.
and I believe it's genuine. Yeah.
Don't you think it's so funny that what you guys used to do and now you get on camera and talk?
It's sometimes am I really doing this? You know, I mean, still, because it's like so out of character.
Yeah. When you speak to Sammy, do you get nostalgia feelings from your previous life?
Yeah, you know, there's still a little part of us that's in that life, but I think in a good way. I don't think in a bad way. We're not going to do some of the things that we did before, but some of the principle that we had is still in us, and we still maintain that. You know, that feeling of family, the brotherhood aspect of it. When you ask me what I miss about that life, you know, was it, you know, the plane and the helicopter and all of that? I don't view that. It wasn't part of the life. Those were toys that I had. You know, you can have them now. But it's that brotherhood, that camaraderie among the guys. Look, there's nothing more powerful than I got your back, you got mine. You know this. It's very powerful when guys, I think other than marriage, there's nothing more powerful than guys having one another's back in this brotherhood. And so I miss that. I miss the good times. But, you know, I say I've been blessed because now I have this fellowship with guys of my faith. We don't do the same things together that we did back then, but we still have that relationship, and it's cool.
That nostalgia feeling that you get when you speak to Sammy, is that a positive feeling? Do you feel like home? Does it remind you of your childhood? What feelings do you get?
Yeah, it is a nostalgic feeling.
Okay.
When we chat about, you know, the way things used to be in some ways, we talk about the good parts mainly.
Do you guys ever get into an argument, just you and him?
No.
No, never arguments, no.
No. I mean, look, we started off on the wrong foot. You know, I said some things that were not right. And I explained to Sam, you know, I once said on camera, and I'll say it again, that on his worst day, John Gotti was a better person than Sammy. And I said that early on. And the reason is when I would go back and visit my father, you know, there were unkind things said about Sammy, and I had that in my head. And I didn't really know Sammy. I didn't really know him. But then when I got to meet him, I said, you know, that was the wrong thing to say because I didn't know the whole circumstance. And Sammy said some things about me. And, he had that opinion and impression. And then when we came to know each other, we both said, we shouldn't have said that. It was wrong. And now we understand that. Yeah, when I talk to him, I enjoy my conversations with Sammy. I love his son. His son would call me up. He says, my dad's being difficult. How can I deal with it? I tease Sammy. I said, Sammy, I'm taking your son with me. He's not with you. He's with me now, we talk like that. His daughter, Karen, I had her on my podcast. One of the best interviews ever. Totally honest. And she said things that I related to, both having fathers in that life, a little different circumstances, but she was very honest about it. She was a terrific, terrific interview. And so I really like his family. So, and people, Michael, Sammy's this and Sammy's that. I said, well, you say the same thing about me. Don't tell me who to like and not like,
Like when I think about, if I put myself in your shoes and I think about I could have got anything my way back then with a gun, with intimidation. Now when you're out and somebody cuts you off or you're at Starbucks or something, do you feel like you miss that? Like getting your way all the time? Is that a hard transition? Because you mentioned the Shah of Iran. When the revolution happened, his family had to move to America, right? So they're in Washington State, they're in Maryland. And I just think, you're royalty, you own the country, now you're stuck in traffic. You're stuck behind somebody at Starbucks trying to get a coffee. What is that transition like where you could get anything you wanted? Now you have to be like everyone else.
Give you a story. I come out of prison and I go to see, I think it was Rocky. Was it Rocky? It was some big movie that was opening up. Line was around the corner. I'm with my wife and we start walking towards the end of the line. And she's looking at me. She says, where are you going? I said, well, we've got to get on the end of the line. She said, you never waited on a line in your life, not even in a movie. Prison. Hurry up and wait. Get on the end of the line. It stuck with me, right?
Yeah.
So I think it cured me for a while. I don't wait on lines anymore. Now I'm over that.
Yeah.
I go on a plane. I'm the first one. I want to get in, sit down. I don't want to be back at anybody.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess from flying so much. I just don't want that inconvenience. But no, look, I have it pretty good. I mean, I get treated well where I go and I'm okay that way.
Speaking of Italy, do you go to Sicily?
I have not been to Sicily.
Why? You'd be a celebrity there, no? Or are you a little bit worried? The safety side of
There's
things.
a different breed of guys in Italy. I don't know. And I'm saying, should I test it? It wasn't important enough for me to okay, should I reach out and see what I should do here, what I could do? I've been all over Italy.
Yeah.
Not to Sicily. And I want to go to Sicily.
And that's deliberate that you haven't gone to Sicily.
Yeah. But I'm not Sicilian.
Oh, you're not?
No, I'm from Naples. My whole family is from Napoletan, from Naples. So, not Sicilian.
But to be in the Mafia, you have to be from Sicily, no?
That's a myth.
Oh, that's a myth?
It's a total myth.
They get us again.
Yeah.
But you have to be
Luciano
Italian.
was from Naples.
Luciano was.
Yeah.
But you have to be Italian.
Have to be. Your father has to be Italian.
Your father has to be Italian.
Yes. Your mother can be of another descent.
Okay.
Although I'm hearing that they've tightened that up now. It's got to be mom and dad from Italy.
Okay.
I don't know that to be a fact, but that's what I'm hearing. I don't know why that would make a difference, but that's what they're saying.
Favorite place in Italy? For me, it's Tuscany.
I love Tuscany.
Love Tuscany.
I love Lake Como.
Yeah, gorgeous.
But I think Capri.
Capri.
Yeah, I love it there.
I wasn't a big fan of Sardinia, by the way.
No?
No, too much partying. It wasn't really Italy.
Really?
I felt like it was just it was like Mykonos or Ibiza.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
So, you just said to me they've changed the rules a little bit recently with the Mafia. So does that mean you are in talks with them? You have a communication with them? You have a direct line with them?
Over the years, people have reached out to me and said, Mike, we're not making any money anymore. We need you to come back. And obviously I've said that's not in the cards, but have I spoken to people? Yeah. Here's the thing. You're not supposed to walk away, period. You take that oath. Look, I didn't get a lobotomy. I don't forget what happened in that life. I took an oath. I didn't sign a contract. There's nothing like that. So my dad said, you're still a member. Sammy says the same thing. We're still members of that life. And I said, Sammy, technically we're not. No, we are. Okay, whatever you say. But can I go back to Brooklyn and say, hey guys, I'm moving back into the neighborhood? Now, some guys may welcome me. Other guys may take offense and say, well, now you're snubbing your nose in our face because you walked away and you've been on YouTube and you talk about the life and that's not supposed to happen. Technically, they're right. I'm not supposed to be on YouTube if I'm a member of that life. Forget it. You couldn't do that. Can't be outspoken. Can't talk about the life. I don't talk about anybody currently. I'm not looking to put people in trouble or put them on blast or anything like that. But why test it? I don't need it. What am I accomplishing? Do I want to go back and run the family? Hell no. That would be you may as well set yourself up for a lifelong headache. I don't want that.
Did you ever personally give the orders to take someone out?
No.
No, not. You never had a problem with someone saying, we need to get this guy out, nothing like that?
I never gave an order in that direction, no. Okay. And I'm being honest with that. Okay. I never did. It's, listen, there are other ways to resolve things in that life, and it's a last resort. Now, and like I said earlier, anybody that was the first cause of action, they didn't last in that life. And I know, I was very observant of the way things went. And guys like that just didn't last. And there were a lot of guys like that. I mean, Roy DeMeo, the guy you could look up his name. Roy DeMeo was a serial killer. He would have been a serial killer whether he was in that life or not. That life just made it easier for him. But that's who he was. And there were a couple of guys like that. And they all met with a bad fate. He ended up in the trunk of a car. Guys like that don't last. So you try to resolve things in a different way.
You're very intelligent. You're very calculated, the way you talk. You're a gentleman. You're in a group with these serial killers. How do you deal with that? Because you're not the same. You're not the same people.
Well, people said to me, Michael, weren't you afraid sitting down with John Gotti, or weren't you afraid? I said, no. What do I have to be afraid of? They're not going to hurt. I'm a made guy. They're not going to hurt. They can't come after me. And I hate to say this, but I know how to shoot the same way they do. I'm not going to do anything wrong to fall into a trap that they're going to be able to ask for my life. The night that I walked in the room, it was a setup. They were trying to see. I mean, there was an article that came out in the newspaper that said I was making $2 billion, that I robbed $2 billion. Now, that was an exaggeration. We had a lot of money. It wasn't $2 billion. A lot of money, though. But, so I'm a young guy. I got a plane. I got a helicopter. I got all of this. I got the Russians were part of my crew. They said that I was becoming strong enough to break away from the Colombo, start my whole family. There was no truth to it whatsoever. It was like a fictional story they made. But it got into guy's head. So now, hey, you know what? This guy, his father's still strong. He's got a big crew. He's got these Russians. So now they're testing me. Basically what it was. To see if, oh yeah, I was making more money. Oh yeah, I did have. But what happened at that meeting, I got mad. I said, what are you talking about? I said, they write these articles about everybody else. It's a lie. About me, it's true. I said, come on, I'm giving you $2 million a week and I'm taking all the risk and you put me on the spot. So I started getting mad. And then I held myself. Classic rule, never outshine the master. Works in reality, works in that life. Keep quiet. You're walking out of here. Keep your mouth shut. So, I don't know what my point was in this, but I have no desire to be back there or anything else like that, but no, I never ordered that on anybody. Now, did I know about things that were happening? Yes. I'd be lying if I said no. I was a captain. We sat down, we discussed it. Murder in that life, I want you to know this, was taken very seriously. You don't just go around killing everybody. First of all, it had to be approved by the boss. You really could not wantonly kill somebody on your own. It had to be approved by the boss.
How often would there be a killing? Because I would imagine once there was a killing, it'd be like gossip going through the whole community.
Yeah.
Right? How often would there be one?
Was not often.
Once a month?
Look, there was 5 families. You didn't know everything that went on immediately in somebody else's family. But all of a sudden, This guy's not around anymore. What happened? You know, stuff like that. Because you didn't hear everything all the time.
Got ya.
But a couple of times a year, somebody's going to go. There's no doubt. But it was taken very seriously. You had to get approval by the boss. You had to sit down. You discussed it. Some people are against it. Some people are for it. The boss made the decision. I'll give you an example so that everybody sees. You saw, what movie was it? Did you see the 1996 Gotti movie? It was HBO, Armand Assante, Anthony Quinn. Brilliant movie. The most realistic movie ever made in that life. Go on YouTube and watch it. You'll love it.
Is it on YouTube?
Huh?
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Free. Brilliant. Armand Assante, brilliant portrayal of Gotti. And Anthony Quinn, even more brilliant, or just as brilliant as when he played Neil Delacroix. There was a scene in that movie that gave me the chills. That's how realistic it was. But there's a scene in there when Gotti killed a made guy. Killed a made guy without permission. Anthony Quinn, who played the underboss at the time, he had a fight for Gotti's life that night. So there were an argument. Paul Castellano wanted Gotti killed because Gotti killed a guy in his crew, a made guy. You can't do that, right? So Anthony Quinn is fighting with Carlo Gambino, fighting for Gotti's life. That's real. This guy made a mistake, he's got to go. Well, wait a second, he shouldn't go. And back and forth. So, and the boss makes the final decision. The scene that got me, oh man. Anthony Quinn comes in with two zips, he called them, two guys from Italy, mob guys from Italy, right? Didn't speak English. He comes in, he's dressed to the nines, right? Gotti's sitting at a table, he looks at Gotti, get over here, because he was Gotti's boss. Gotti sits down, and he's telling him, you don't kill a made guy from another guy's crew. He said, I had to fight for you all night. He says, you don't break the rules. We have rules in this life. We live by the rules. He says, you're like a son to me. But if I'd have lost the argument and the boss says, come in here, you got to go, I bring these two zips in here and you would go. Just like that. But the way he delivered those lines, I said, wow, it struck home with me. That's the truth. But it goes to show you how serious murder was. You didn't just go around killing people. You know, so obviously I'm a captain. I knew of things. I sat at things.
Have you ever seen a hit go completely wrong?
Yes.
Can you tell us one?
Hey. I'm not going to name them, but two guys were in the pornography business. And they had to go. And they went after him, and they shot him up, and they lived.
It's two made men in the pornography business. Yeah. And the order was sent down to kill them.
Yes.
And they got shot, but they didn't die.
They didn't die.
So what happened? They came back with vengeance?
No, they disappeared afterwards. They were smart. They left. Frank Costello. Chin. Shot him in an elevator. Grazed his head. He lived. Yeah. He didn't snitch. He left alive. They said, we'll let you leave. Genovese left him leave. True story. Everybody knows that.
What's some creative ways that the Mafia would punish somebody without killing him?
Put him on a shelf. Meaning you're out of life. You got no more respect, nothing. You're not regarded anymore.
So you're not in the life anymore?
They put you on a shelf. Meaning that you have no more rights.
Do you have to still attend meetings?
No. You're banned.
So that's a way of getting out of the life.
Yeah. Joe Bonanno was put on the shelf.
Wow.
That's why he came out to Phoenix. They told him you either go or you die because he tried to kill Gambino. He was involved in a plot to kill Gambino. And so they sent him out. They said, out of respect, you're a boss. We're going to let you live, but you're gone. And they sent him out to Phoenix.
Wow.
This is all true stuff, by the way.
There's no torture.
Huh?
There's no torture.
You're going to die, period. There's no torture.
And it's usually a quick death.
Made guy, if you raise your hands to another made guy, you're dead. Period. There's no torture, you're dead. The way they kill you, they want to make an example out of you. They may mess you up a little bit, but you're dying at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no beating up.
Because going back to my first question about, would you get along with these guys? Like one's a serial killer. Yeah. Would you get along with them? What was have you been to the Raven Knights social club? So you've been there, how many times do you think you've been there?
10 times.
10 times?
Yeah.
What's it like inside? It's just a,
Social club.
it's a
Guys
boy
sitting around playing cards. That's all it was.
drinking,
You had
smoking.
a charter on the wall that you were a social club, and that was it. Yeah, drinking, talking. Back room, if you had business to discuss, you sit down so nobody else can hear.
And you got along with everyone. It's not like this guy's a serial killer, he's a piece of shit, I don't want to sit next to him.
Not openly. Like Roy DeMeo, I knew Roy. He had card shopping places. You steal your card, chop it up, and whatever, right? So I had 2 Jaguars. I had a 2-door and I had a 4-door. I had it parked on the street in Queens. I wake up in the morning, both Jaguars are gone. Damn. Make a few calls, got in touch with Roy. I said, Roy, I don't know, maybe you know a little bit about this. I had 2 Jaguars. I said, I appreciate if you can put the word out, maybe I get them back. I had them back the next morning. So I had a casual, do I want to really associate with this guy? Is he my bet? No. But you maintain a relationship.
What's the most brutal act of violence that you've seen, that you've witnessed, that made you question everything?
It was really
Fingers
the
getting chopped up?
aftermath. No, it was the aftermath of it. I had a very dear friend who was a Jewish guy. And he was like a mentor to me when my father went away. He was very close to my father. His name was Artie. They called him Artie the Animal, a real tough guy, construction guy, tough guy. And I'd have Seder dinner with him every year. I loved his family. He loved me like a son, right? And something happened, and they murdered him. And I was young. I was 20 years old. This was my first really eye-opening experience. So I walk into the funeral parlor, only one day, was Jewish. And his sister comes up to me, loved me, hugged me. And she said, look what those animals did to my brother. So she walks me over to the casket and opens it up. Unrecognizable. I didn't even know it was him. At that point, I got a little faint. It was, I can never forget that image. That was the first, like, wow. Now, people said, you would have thought that that would have dissuaded you from becoming part of the life. It didn't. I experienced that again somewhat, but it was very eye-opening, and that stands out. Now, I've seen people get beat up and that, but that stands out.
Is there something you'll never admit, even on your deathbed?
Not, I'll admit it to God. I've repented.
There's nothing you'll make public before your deathbed? Like, is there stuff that you have in your brain that you will take to the grave with you that you don't want out?
Yeah, because it would not benefit anybody by me telling them. Like, if I had some secret that would give a family peace of mind, if I hadn't done it already, I would do that. But I don't have anything like that.
In that world, it's crazy because you could go to a funeral and everybody's crying, and one of the guys that's crying was the person that killed the person.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Insane. And he's just as sad. He had to make the order, or it's him.
Hey, there was one, I'll never forget it. It almost made me laugh, but I got it. Sammy Gravano, talking about a guy that he killed. And they asked him about it, and he said he went to the funeral. And he got mad at the guy. He said, why did you make me do this? I loved you.
Yeah.
And I get it. Yeah. That happened. Yeah. You broke the rules. It's just like that scene. I would have come here and killed you.
Yeah.
And I would have been sick over it. But the life comes before anything. That's the mentality we have. I had this argument with my dad once. Not argument, but, before you get straightened out, what they tell you, straightened out means get made, take the oath. They tell you, from now on, this life becomes before anything. If your mother is sick and dying, you're at her deathbed, we tell you to leave your mother, you come and serve us. We're number one before anything. This life comes first. And I said, Dad, is that how we operate? We put our family back? So one day he said to me, you can never be a cop. I said, why not? He said, because a cop takes an oath to lock up their own parents if they do something wrong. Would you ever do that? And I said, well, I'd leave my mother on her deathbed if the family called me, because that's what we have to do. He got mad at me. He said, there's no comparison. I said, it's exactly the same, Dad. he couldn't handle it. It was funny. He couldn't handle it. He said, "Ah, it's different. You know, we have integrity." I said, "Dad, come on, same thing."
Yeah.
I said, "Don't badmouth police
Yeah.
because they took an oath
Yeah.
to uphold the law,
Yeah.
and we took an oath to be members of that life."
Yeah.
But same thing.
It's funny how he didn't have an answer for it, but he kind of went off and he thought about it, probably in
Yeah.
the shower or something, and he came back and he said, "Okay, well, what about this? You can never be a cop."
Well, he never brought it up again.
Yeah.
So I knew my dad didn't have the answer to that.
Yeah. Your dad sounds like a man that you don't really find anymore.
One of a kind.
Hmm.
He was just different.
You have daughters.
5,
You have 5 daughters. No sons.
2,
2 sons. Oh, I didn't know that. How old are your sons?
45 and 35.
If they wanted to go into the mob.
No way.
No way.
My son, my younger one, was born here. I was married once before for a short time. We had 3 kids in 3 years. So 2 girls and a boy. My oldest boy was hanging out with my dad a lot. He was driving my dad. I found out about it. I got on a plane. This was after I come home from prison. And I went to New York and I said, "Dad, stop. I don't want my son involved in his life." "Well, he's not getting involved." I said, "He's meeting people." I said, "First of all, I don't know if anybody's still got a chip on his shoulder with me." I said, "You're not around. You're putting this kid in danger, possibly." I said, "I don't want him. You give me your word, it stops." All right. Not that I didn't trust my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I grabbed my son and said, "Come out here. You're going to live with me out in California." And I brought him out here. Who knows? First of all, it's a bad life. I don't want him involved in life. With my name, my dad's name, forget it. What chance does he have? Number one. Number two, who knows if somebody would take something out on him? You know, mad at me, your father left, and he gets in a bar fight one night. Who knows? No good. And I told him, "Are you out of your mind? What's the matter with you?" You know, so he's out here, he's doing fine now, no problem.
So he was close.
He wasn't cut out for it.
Okay.
I know that.
Okay.
Not cut out for it.
Okay.
You know, that life, you got to be very disciplined. You know, it's a different mentality.
Your daughter's partners or boyfriends or husbands, are they intimidated by you?
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah.
And you do it deliberately?
No, I don't have to.
Yeah.
No. There's subtle ways you make people understand something. Like, I may put on a little show for one of them that has nothing to do with them.
Huh.
And they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to get this guy mad." You know, something like
Yeah.
that. But I tell them straight out, you know, I sit them down. I say, "Let me explain something to you. You got a very good girl here. Her mother takes care of her mother. Good girl. She's going to be loyal to you. Good woman." I said, "But let me explain something to you. Very tough. Demanding. They grew up. They got a lot. They've had it all." I said, "Very tough." I said, "If you can't handle it, get out now because you're not going to win because they got me." I tell them straight out. That's all I tell them. I said, "But if you can handle it," I said, my wife's very independent, tough. I can handle it. She understands. I said, "So understand that going in."
I'd love to have you as a father-in-law. I'd love to have you as a dad. I love my dad, but I mean, if I had you as my dad, fuck, I'd be the president.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
And I would promote it all the way. I'd support it, believe me.
If somebody did something, God forbid, somebody did something to your daughter, right? Hit her, murdered her, would the old life kick right back in? And
Without a doubt. I said, I'll go to jail. God forbid anybody, even my grandkids, any pedophile, I'm going to jail. Happily.
But you're not stopping.
Absolutely not.
You're calling everyone you know, you're picking up all the weapons you've got, you're going.
You just can't do that.
You're like have you watched Dexter? You're like a TV show waiting to happen. If somebody wrongs you and because you have a very strategic, logical mind, you would start planning everything. He does this, he walks his dogs at this time and this and that. You wouldn't go out like a cowboy, just spraying bullets.
No.
You'd be very strategic and logical.
You know, I have to say this, and I've dealt with this emotionally and mentally. In my faith, the Christian faith, sin is sin. Murder is not, in God's eyes, is not any worse than any other sin. Is there justification to commit a sin? The answer to that is no, unless self-defense. Murder is murder. Whether you kill somebody in self-defense or you kill somebody in the military, or you kill somebody on the street, it's murder. Now there's heinous murders, God forbid, So I'm saying this, you come after somebody in my family and you do some heinous crime, you're going. I'll let God decide when I get in front of him. He knows my heart. He knows why I did what I did. He knows that I wouldn't do that under normal circumstances. But you come at my family, Lord, you made me, you know who I am. There's a line that you can't cross. And that's it. And especially now, I'm going to be 74 years old. What do I got to worry about? I live my life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let somebody take advantage of my family like that.
But I also feel like you're smart enough to be able to do it without getting caught.
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not going to just go out in Times Square and say, hey, come here, I'm shooting you in the head.
Correct.
I mean, but you're going to go.
Yeah. If you were to kill someone, how would you do it?
How would I do it?
Yeah. How would you do it?
Hey, listen, depends on the circumstances. There's different ways to, unfortunately, look, you get this guy Mangione who killed the guy from the healthcare
That's
company.
right.
Come on. That guy was not, they kept saying it was a professional. Guy was anything but a professional. He's in Starbucks. He's on camera. He's ordering coffee. He's leaving footprints. He goes, I mean, come on. You may as well advertise yourself. Look, there's ways to do things. And you think it out and you handle it. My father always told me something. He was so right about this, so right. And it's something that I tell people all the time. You want to do something, you want to commit a crime, do it alone. That's it. Figure it out, do it alone. If you're not capable of doing it alone, you probably shouldn't do it. What do you need people around? Everybody could be a problem for you. Listen, I had an undercover operation on me. It was me and Don King, right? I was with an undercover agent and an informant for a year. They made 83 tape recordings on me, and not one of them could be used against me. And I wasn't sure who they were. I kept them at, well, that wasn't true to extent. I played racquetball with the guy. I'll tell you how smart I was. He used to complain, I got a bad back. He had a Nagra tape recording in his back. The old days in the 80s, they didn't have the sophistication that they have now. Tape recorder could be this big in your hat, right? He had a Nagra tape recorder. I never shook him down or anything like that. I took him on my plane several times, went up to his office. We became friends. 83 tape recordings. He tried to lure me into some things. He couldn't use one of them. Because I always said, you know what? Discipline in that life is so important. You cannot get off your guard. Another time I'm in a Howard Johnson's restaurant, meeting with somebody I didn't trust. I wired myself. He was an informant, he wired himself. We both had wires on one another. They told me the guy was wired. I said, well, so am I. You want to compare wires? Don't worry about it, So I was fortunate, but again, I attribute that to my dad. He prepared me properly.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to do something, why am I going to bring somebody else into it? I got a possible liability there. People are different when they're faced against that jail cell. People are different.
Well, your dad's a great man.
Yeah.
And you're a great man. I appreciate you giving us your time. By the way, I always see you wearing that necklace, but this is the first time I'm seeing you wearing it with the Andrew Tate chest, the horse piece.
Andrew Tate gave this to me the last time I was with him. And people have commented on it. Oh, come on, you got Andrew Tate's things on. I said, don't tell me who to be my friends with, number one. And number two, it meant something. He took it off of himself and he put it on me. I consider Andrew a friend. I like the guy. I believe his case in Romania is garbage. And I try to tell people, did he say distasteful things? Yes, there's no question. Would I repeat some of the things he said? No. But I know him as a different person. I also know his background. These guys grew up, I can call them kids because I could be their father. They grew up under very difficult circumstances. So they did things that got to where they got. They're not doing the same things now. And what they did, in my view, and from the evidence I looked at, did not rise to the standard of criminality. So it's one thing. You don't like somebody, don't like them. You don't want to pay attention on social media. You want to badmouth them. You have an opinion. That's up to you. But you don't put people in prison for that. And you don't try to destroy their lives and bankrupt them for that. People tell me, he did all these things on OnlyFans. OnlyFans is a legitimate site. If you don't like it, go after the guy that created it. Don't go after the people that are on there, because then you got to lock everybody up.
Correct.
So this is my mentality, and nobody's going to change it. And until unless something changes my mind that I have to see personally or deal with, that's my position. So yeah, I wear this because Andrew gave it to me out of friendship, and I'm supportive of that.
Beautiful.
And I have my, this is my thing on the other side, you know.
Oh, that's, yeah.
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 So, but his normally, for some reason, comes up front.
On the front.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And I mean, you look at, you know, I had a thought. I had a crazy thought the other day. You know, when Jesus died, all the Christians went into hiding. They went to caves because obviously they were persecuted. They just crucified Jesus. 300 years later, the new Roman emperor came and he said Christianity will be our main business, our main religion. And that is when it kind of grew and it went and took over the world, right? Andrew Tate could become a religion when he dies. The followings that he has, the crucifixions that they've done to him, and he's almost shaping to be a perfect candidate. Crazy if things have happened. Now, I'm not talking about when he dies. I'm talking about 1,000 years after he dies, 400 years after he dies. He could, with the followings that he's got, crazier things have happened. He could potentially turn to a religion.
He needs to continue what he's doing because men need to grow up and learn how to be men. We're losing that, especially in this country. I heard in the United Kingdom too. I don't know, maybe other parts of the world, but we have it bad here in that regard. He's changing that. He's got a lot of young men following him. And the right message is being delivered to those young men, as far as I'm concerned. And but here's the thing with Andrew, and here's the thing, I wanna leave you with this, why I became a Christian. Nobody pushed it on me. Nobody said, hey, you gotta be a Christian. My wife's a Christian. My mother-in-law prayed for me every night. I think she prayed me into my Christianity. But here's what happened. First night I'm in prison. Bad night, I explained it already. Prison guard hands me a Bible, pushes it through the slot on the door. I pick it up, I start to read the Bible. A couple of verses got my attention. But here's what happened. I grew up as a Catholic, but Catholicism to me was like a subject in school. You know, don't do this, you're going to hell. Don't do that. Don't tell me. I wasn't a guy that liked to listen to stuff like that. So okay. Jesus hanging on a cross, this wimpy view of Jesus, right? Didn't impress me. Did I believe? I don't know. Believed in God. Why do I believe in God first before I became a person of faith? It makes sense to believe in God. Everything has a creator. I don't understand how God can always was, always will be, always remains the same. Some things are beyond our human capacity to understand. I don't get it. Maybe when I get to heaven, he'll explain it to me. Maybe not. I don't know. But this earth didn't come from little speck of dust going into some big bang that banged into everything. It's insanity to think that. God makes more sense, even though he's unexplainable. But here's what happened. That first night, I said, you know what? From the time I was 5 years old, my father told me the standard in life you have to live up to. You have to be a man's man. That's it, Michael. There's no less. A man's man. What do I mean by that? You walk down the street, you got to have integrity. People got to look up to you. They got to respect you. You got to earn that respect. You treat women and children the right way. That's a standard you have to live up to. Be honest. Keep your word. He told me that all the time, right? Think he's told me bad things because he was a mobster? No, he told me good things. I got into the life. We're men of honor. We're men above men. We have respect. We have integrity. We have loyalty. A lot of it was BS on some things. People died for the wrong reasons. Like anything else, there's corruption, even in a corrupt organization. Okay, so when I started to read about Jesus, I said, you know what kind of guy was he? I see him as this guy hanging on a cross, like I don't know much about him. What kind of man was he? So I start reading the Gospels. I said, wow. There was no greater man that ever walked the face of the earth than Jesus of Nazareth. Separate his deity from his manhood in every aspect of his character. So now I'm saying, is this real? So now I do the research, and as far as I'm concerned, there's multitude of evidence to prove that Scripture is real. It's not made up. It's not a fantasy. Evidence. I look for evidence. The apostles, they lived, they breathed, they walked the earth. It was true. 12 men go to their death because they saw a resurrected person. They're not doing that for any other reason. They're not. That's powerful evidence to me. You don't go to your death for something you don't believe in. Even people that believe in the wrong thing, it could be wrong, but they believe in it and they'll go to their death. We've seen that happen. There's a lot of evidence to prove it. Prophecy that has been fulfilled. A prophet is only a prophet if 100% of what he says is true. If he makes one mistake, he's not a prophet. All of these things started to add up, and I had 29 months and 7 days to read it and really believe it. I send books, and I listen. I don't ever demean anybody else's faith. We as Christians don't have a right to do that. We can share our faith. We can't impose it on anyone, and we can't try to turn anybody into a Christian. You do that, you lose people. That's not our job. Our job is to share. Jesus' last command to all of us, Mark 16:15, go out and preach or share the good word with all of creation. That's why I've been doing it for 25 years now. Share it. God will do the rest, or he won't. One of the two. But the evidence is powerful. I sat down with Andrew. We had a talk. I said, Andrew, he told me he became a Muslim. Now, as a Christian, I want to know why. Okay? Because I believe my faith. Listen, it's not a question of arrogance. It's what we believe based upon the evidence, not based upon anything but evidence. That's my take on it. So, Andrew, why did you leave the Christian faith and become a Muslim? He said, Michael, because I don't like the way people in the West, they're not disciplined. They're not real Christians. They're phonies. I said, Andrew, to a great extent, that's true. I agree with you. There's phonies in the church. There's phony pastors. But why are you judging a perfect God by imperfect people? Where does it say that people are going to be perfect in their faith? You got this backwards. And he looked at me and said, okay, that makes sense. Now I left it at that because I'm not trying to beat him over the head. I talked to Tristan afterwards. Tristan, your brother, we gotta talk to him. He said, I know. He said, I don't impose it. I leave him alone. I said, well, that's good. I said, because there's another verse in the Bible that I believe says it all. Jesus is asked, I forget the verse. I'm not a encyclopedia like that. What is your mission here on earth? His response was very telling. He said, not to lose one soul for my Father. So I believe anybody that knows the Lord will come back, even if they sway. Thief on the cross, last few seconds of his life. He saw something in Jesus' heart. What did he say? Remember me today in your kingdom. What did Jesus say? Oh, wait a second. You just came to me. You got to do the work. You got to go to purgatory if there is such a place. It's not in the Bible. There's no such a place. No, he said, today you'll be with me in paradise. Those were his words. He saw in that guy's heart. He said, okay, you're forgiven. So that's the kind of God we serve. Now, some people say, oh, come on, Michael, a serial killer, a murderer. Hey, you know what? You don't know what hell is. But from my observation of hell, the lasting horror show forever. We can't fathom what forever means. We can't. But does anybody in life deserve that fate when we have evil in the world? Satan is lurking in the world. We have evil. He's getting at everybody. So some people are weak. They fall. Do they deserve, in a world where we know that the enemy is always trying to get us into the worst possible place? So some people are weak. Heinous, don't get me wrong. I hate the disgusting act of pedophile or rape or all those things. Horrible. But does that person deserve eternity in a world where Satan exists? He didn't put Satan there. Satan exists to destroy that person, to destroy you and destroy me. So if we don't have the stamina, the blessing to overcome that, do we deserve an eternity in the worst possible place that anybody can imagine? Constant suffering every second of your life. I don't know. I don't think so. So that's what God says. Now I'll give you a chance right up to the last second. I love that. So that's how I can explain it. Now, again, I want to make this clear. My faith is rock solid. There's nothing that can change my faith based upon my work. God did me a big service by putting me in solitary for almost 3 years. He really did, because I would have never came to Christ had I not been there. I was too much a product of my life. But I had the time, and I had the fear of me, and I had everything to really look. But my faith is rock solid. I'm not a perfect Christian. Like I just said, I'll kill somebody if they hurt my family. So I'm not perfect in that regard, but my faith, rock solid.
And I think that's why I love I mean, faith is so important amongst men. And I think that's why I love Dubai, because you can see God everywhere in Dubai. You can smell it, you can see it. While, Dubai, you've got Sin City. You can have as much fun and hedonist behavior as you want. Same as Vegas, but Vegas only has Sin City. It only has hedonism. It doesn't have God. Dubai has both. It has God and Sin City.
Well, it's a Muslim country.
It's a Muslim country.
I have so much respect for the discipline that Muslims have. I was with so many of them in prison, and I sat and we talked. And I really respected the discipline. And I understand what Andrew was saying. You get a true Muslim, they're true to their faith. They're not wavering. You can say the same of Christianity, but we don't have those strict disciplinary rules. So to watch somebody really live out their faith is very, very, it's admirable.
Yeah, very strong.
Yeah, and I get along great with them. And I don't try to, if they ask me, I'm going to talk. I'm going to say, this is what I believe, and that's what you believe, and hey.
No, but listen, Dubai is so diverse. It's so diverse. My driver is a Christian. Every Sunday he's got off because he wants to go to the church. 15 different churches you can choose from. It's so diverse.
You know what? I was so impressed with Jerusalem. Jerusalem, you had Jews and Muslims
Together.
all together.
Yeah.
No problem, nothing whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I'm saying there, I said, what is all this insanity in the world? And here in the birthplace, right here, look at how everybody's getting along.
Yeah.
Should be a model for everybody else.
100%. Well, I appreciate you. It was an honor to sit with you, let alone speak with you for 2 hours. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time.
Well, I want to say this, and I really mean this. This is one of the most satisfying conversations that I've ever had.
Wow.
I don't know why. Just
Appreciate
feel
you.
very comfortable and loose, and you're good at what you do. You're great at what you do.
Thank
I'll
you.
say that.
I appreciate it, because I'm not a podcast, I'm a business guy. But I found a love for it, and I'm just continuing it, and it's God's work, really.
Listen, I don't consider myself a podcaster either. When I sit with somebody, I let them talk. There was times when somebody said, well, Michael, you didn't challenge them on this, and you didn't. I said, I'm not here for that. I bring them on to tell this story. Now, if they say something that, that I think needs attention, we'll bring it to them. But they're here to tell their story. You hear from me all the time. No, you did a really great job.
I appreciate you. And next time we podcast is going to be in my car in Dubai. I'm going to give you a little tour of the whole city while we're in the car. And it'll be more casual. Today I had questions, but next time we're just going to get into deep and talk about philosophy.
Okay, now I'm telling his audience out there, okay, we got a handshake. That's like a commitment in my life. And from what I understand in Dubai, they still work with handshakes. He's bringing me to Dubai.
Yes.
He made a couple of commitments that I'm going to hold him to, and we'll see what happens.
Or I'm going to get whacked.
I didn't want to say that. He said it.
And,
No, it's not going to happen.
you're a gentleman.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate you. Thank you.